So right now we're taking a ride on my 1996 Acura TL 3.2, and we're taking a ride on it so you can hear what it's going through. You can hear a clunking sound from the passenger side. That clunking, clicking, tapping kind of sound that you hear when the car makes turns. That is our CV axle. When we stress that joint out, when turning, we get that clunking sound. So what we're gonna do is replace the CV axle on the passenger side. And because it has a lot of miles and this one's starting to make that sound, it may be a good idea to buy a set and also do the driver's side or the other side that you're working on. This car is not gonna get driven a lot, and like I said, it has a lot of miles, so I don't mind just replacing one. And if it starts happening on the other side, then we'll just replace that one too. We took off the center cap so we can access the axle nut. We can pop the axle nut with a impact tool or very long breaker bar. If you look closely on the axle nut, there's a little indent that's been punched in, and that's sort of a safety mechanism in case the car vibrates so much that it actually is able to break loose this axle nut. It physically cannot because it's going to start hitting that metal piece there. But we have to take that out, so we're going to punch that back in and then try to drive it out. I'm going to try to screwdriver in there first, see if I can get it to move a little bit. Got a little bit of a gap there, so I'm going to get a punch. We now have that punched out so we could rotate that freely without getting stuck there. This is going to be a 36 millimeter, and we're going to try an impact and see if we can break this loose. Didn't even budge.
One week later.
Finally got this axle nut off. I ended up having to order an impact 36 millimeter 6-point socket for my impact, and that did it. It was able to loosen it up. So I don't know if you can see that. You're gonna have to squint really hard, but no, I'm just kidding. There is pretty much nothing here. It's a little bit of grease, what's left of a boot. That's our problem. And the goal is to remove the axle. To remove or even access the axle, there's a lot of stuff that I have to address first. Ball joints, disc, knuckle. I start off easy. We're gonna just make some room, give this brake cable some slack. These brake line fasteners are usually gonna be a 10 millimeter. I'm gonna go ahead and put the fasteners back where I found them, just because it's a lot easier to know where they go when they're already there. Every time I take off one fastener and I think I'm done, there's another one that pops up. So here's another 12 millimeter in the back. I just noted that this cable that runs down the knuckle doesn't have much room when we remove the knuckle, so we're also gonna give that some slack. These all look to be 10 millimeters. Alright, so it's the next day. Ran out of sunlight, so now we've got the sun out, and we can continue where we left off. So this cable's been all unbolted, all the bolts and fasteners are hanging there, and now we've got plenty of slack. Now we're going to tackle the ball joints. You got 3 points of contact to the frame, one up here, one down here, one on the left side, and those are all with ball joints. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this one on the top first. All these ball joints are also going to have a cotter pin that we need to straighten out and pull out. And that is our cotter pin. So I'm going to take a large hammer and I'm going to try to hit as close as I can to that ball joint, but I'm going to try to avoid hitting up here or here. And it's popped. I also left that there so it wouldn't just swing up. You can see our other bolt and then ball joint that is going in there as well. We're gonna need to knock that loose as well. Alright, so there was a lot of banging involved for the bottom one, and I couldn't get a good angle, but there is a spot there where you can hit it, and after a couple hits, that lower ball joint becomes loose. Now, while watching you guys make different decisions, so you may take care of one ball joint and then try to strong arm the axle out. I'm just doing it this way because that's what I've normally done for most of this stuff. I have done where I take one ball joint or two ball joints and just try to wiggle it out, and it's a pain, but it can be done. Now we're gonna go ahead and hit the axle, kind of help it out a little bit. So now that we've hit that out, the axle is loose. Pop. And now that the knuckle is off, you can see the axle and, well, what's left of it. So we got a lot out of the way now, and we've got more room to work with our axle, but the strut is still getting in our way, so what we need to do is remove this bottom bolt, one bolt from up here in the middle, wiggle this out, and then get our axle out. Alright, some very choice words later, and I've got the bolt out. I ended up having to disconnect this cable entirely, and it was a pain because the 10mm fasteners that hold it together are in the worst spot, but it came out. It's out. Now we got all this room to take our axle out. And it's out in one piece. It's also a good idea to put a catch can or a bucket under where the CV axle comes out, because you might have transmission fluid leak out. I can get a close-up of what the inside of a CV axle looks like. One thing I've learned so far from this, it's probably easier to pop the axle when it's still in place in the knuckle. That way it's not hanging and putting more resistance when popping out. When it's in the knuckle, it's at least straight and it will come out straight instead of like that. This is also a good moment to compare old parts to new parts. So this is our old axle, and then we've got our new one here. The old one is 2 inches longer, but that's because it's popped out here in this mess here. It looks like it attaches the same way. This looks like the original one that would have been installed on the car back in 1995. Now it's time to do the reverse of what we've done. I'm going to go ahead and position this. Be gentle, try to guide it in and align it as best as you can. And it's in. Yep, you can even hear it. And when retightening these bolts for the strut, it's recommended the car have weight on it, so we're going to jack this up, recreate the feeling of the car being on all four. Alright, we've got some weight on it. So I've got the bottom ball joint in, the axle is sort of in place, and I'm just struggling to screw in this sensor here. Also, periodically I'm washing my hands because all the grease that's left over makes it a lot harder to grasp things, and it also makes it harder to screw things in. Alright, I jacked it up more. Let's see if that gives me enough. Get the nut on. Whew. And there we go. So I haven't been able to record everything that I've been doing, but essentially got the knuckle back on, upper ball joints in, lower ball joints in. The other ball joint on the side is in as well. Went ahead and put the fasteners back in for the brake line, for the sensor as well. Everything is fastened back in. The axle nut is in, but not tightened down. That's gonna get tightened down when the car is back on all fours. All I have to do now is put the tire back on, and lugs. All right, axle is in, lug nuts are in, tire is in, not in that order. Let's take it for a test drive. We're gonna make this a quick test run because this car has no AC and it's about 85 degrees. That's forward, we need to go back. Turning right, no sound. There is a rattling sound, but that's from the exhaust. This car does have character. That is how you replace a CV axle on this 1996 Acura TL 3.2. And well, if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up if you found it helpful. If you didn't find it helpful or didn't enjoy it, that other button seems to work very well. Give me some feedback, share some stories in the comments down below. Subscribe if you want to stay in the know for more videos coming soon. And I will catch you in the next one. That's forward, we need to go back.